Hi folks, and hopefully this one's going to be a pretty fast one today. This PlayStation 3 was sent to me by one of my subscribers, Jason. Hi Jason. And he's become a bit of a mate, to be honest. But when he sent it to me, he did say that there was a slight problem with the BluRay drive and I might need to investigate that. So in the process of doing that, I actually took the whole PlayStation apart and cleaned it all out and had a look and saw if there was any other issues. And while I was doing that, I thought, well, I might as well replicate this. So if anyone has got the same model PlayStation, they can come on here and have a look and see how to take it all apart. And the model I've got here is the CECHL03 model. And all these models vary slightly depending on which version you've got. So if you've got the CECHL03 and you want to take it apart, this hopefully will be the video for you. Now, first things first, what you'll need to do is take off the top. And the way you do that, if you can see here, there's a little sticker and you remove the sticker and then there's a little lug here and you pull off this little lug and in there's a Torx 10 screw. So you would need a Torx 10 head and you can unscrew that. Now with this one, you can see it's moving now. It's actually loose, and the reason for that is because the clip has broken off, so it's not an issue for me and I can just slide it off. So let's do that now. And I'll just pull that off and set that aside. And if you look, don't know if you can see in there, you can just about see where it's sheared off, but otherwise you'd need to undo that. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing you'll need to do is you want to take out the hard drive, and the way you do that is you remove this. If you go from the back and just get your finger underneath and it'll just clip off. Set that aside, and then there's a blue screw and you want to make sure you hold on to that because it's the only blue screw in the whole process. And if you undo that and stick it aside. Now I've got some old yogurt pots and I'm using those. So once that's removed, you can just get your finger underneath. You should be able to get your finger underneath. Famous last words. There you go. And that comes out like that. And then you just gently pull. And the whole hard drive housing comes out. And if you wanted to replace your hard drive, that's how you would do that. So let's set that aside as well. And then once you've done that, you want to go back onto the back, or lay it down flat again, I should say. So now we've got it laid down flat. And there are several screws that you want to remove. One there, one there, one there, one there, one there, one there, and one there. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws. Now the one at the back here, don't know if you can see, let me show you. It's got an S on it. And the one with the S on is a smaller screw. So when you're putting it back together, you'll need to remember that. So let's take that one out first. And that's that one. And I'll show you the difference in length in a moment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a separate yogurt pot. Got a few of these lying around. And I'm going to keep all these top screws in a separate pot. So there's a small one in there. And now we just do all the others as well. and I just want a small pair of pliers to get into that one. And there's two more now. And the last one. Right, and as you can see, I'll just show you now. The first one with the S, presumably for small, is slightly shorter and smaller, so you do need to make sure you put the right one back in. Just keep a note of the S. It's the back right hand corner as you look at the PlayStation from the front. Now, to get the top off, what you'll need to do is try and get your finger underneath, and it might be a little bit tight. And just gently, it feels like it's gonna break, but it won't. Believe me. If you can get under there, and you will feel a snap. Let's just use. There you go. Snap. And that isn't broken, it just broke away from the plastic lugs. If you can see a plastic lug. And we can set that aside now. And once you've got that bit off, you just lift it towards you and it'll just come off because it's lugged at the front here as well. And now you've got the top off, you'll want to remove the BluRay drive and the power supply. Now, what I would suggest is you take off the power supply first, because in order to get the BluRay drive off, you have to disconnect a connector that's under here. So you'll need your screwdriver again, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws. So let's start and work our way around. That's a small one, and there is another small one at the back here. So, another pot, because you want to keep each individual item separate. You don't want to mix up your screws because they are all slightly different sizes. So that was the pot for the power supply. These are, if you look here, these screws that we're taking out here are in the centre. They're not the ones on the outside because they're the main ones that go through when you're taking the top case off. And if you look, that one that we took from the front is slightly smaller than these two. So again, you need to make sure you remember, and it's handy here because I've got two separate compartments. So next thing you want to do is just turn it round slightly. And you've got one screw here and one screw down just inside underneath it. I don't know if you can see that. Let's just lift that up so you can see it. And it's these two screws here you want to be taking out. And this screw is the same as the one that you took out of here. So you want to put it in the front of the pot. And then a little one in there. I think that's out. So let's just get my... And this one's smaller again. And if you can see that. Smaller again. I'll put that with those. And that's the smallest one is the one that goes down inside. I'll show you again. The smallest screw is the one that goes just in. Just in there. Can you see where that's going in? So that one there. Okay. So next, you want to be able to lift this out. So in order to lift that out, you want to unplug that one. And then unplug this one as well. And this one's got a little lug on it. And you should just be able to press the lug. And, oh, it's sticking. Let's just move the cables out. And it should now, there you go, pull out. And once those two are out, this one and this one, this you want to lift up. Now, what you want to do, when you're lifting this up, you want to try and bring it up absolutely straight, because just about here, there's a plug where it plugs in and it might be a bit stiff, so just gently ease it up and it'll come away. And there you can see that's where it was connected, and it was connected to these. Don't do any of this if it's plugged in. You're not daft though, I'm sure you'll know that. Right, and we can set the power supply aside now with its screws. And next, the BluRay drive. Now, the BluRay drive isn't screwed in at all. You can just lift it out. But before you lift it out, you want to unplug this one, plug here, one that plugs into there, and you want to undo this ribbon cable. Now, to do the ribbon cable, you need to be very careful because these things are very fragile. So you just want to get your nail, and if you can see that, let me show you up close. You want to just get a nail under this black little clip here, and when you get your nail underneath it, see if I can do it from the other side. Can you see? Just get your nail underneath and pull up. Can you see when you've pulled it up? And then you should be able to gently take this little plastic tab and ease it out. And that's out. So now you can set that aside as well. Okay, so far so good. Right, next you want to remove this, which is the hard drive tray, and that's fairly simple. There's two little screws here. And I'm putting those in the same tray as the little blue one for when the hard drive is slid in and done up there. So keep those together. So that's those two, and once they're out, you can just lift that up and it should just come away, and put that with your hard drive. Right, so next thing, you want to remove this top plate, this shield. And the way you do that, there's several connectors you want to take off first. And it's that one, this one here, and this one here. Now this one here just unplugs. What it should do, came out easy earlier on, and there you go. So that one comes out, and then you want to unplug the antenna. And again, I'm going to have a separate tray for these. And the ones at the front are going to go in the little pot at the front. So that one, and that one's a bigger one, and it's got a washer on it. And then the last one at the front, and you can do this differently to me, obviously. You don't have to code them like I'm doing it. You can come up with your own way of doing it. Just make sure you don't mix up the screws. That's a small one, little tiny one, and there's one more little tiny one just back here. I don't know if you can see that. And I'm going to take that one out first as well before I start on the bigger screws, if you like. Right, and so they're all in that little pot there. So one, that one there, that one there, and that one there. So 3 from the front and 1 from the back. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws to unplug here. And these screws are slightly bigger than the others, so again I'm putting them in a separate part of the pot. As I say, you can do it any way you like, just make sure you keep them together and don't mix the screws up. Because most of these screws go into plastic. So you've got one there, and then there's the last one is this one here, and that's actually on the board itself. Right, so we want to lift this out so that it doesn't get caught on the board, and you lift it like that. So you just lift it with your finger and then just pull it away, because there's a little lug just here, and when you put it back you would just slide it into there and then down and then screw it back in again. But there's one other step we need to do before we remove this plate, and that's to take these off, and these are the tensioners for the heatsink. So you just gently work our way around those. I wouldn't undo it fully on one side, I'd just work your way around so that it comes off evenly. And the problem I had was, and this is an interesting one, that it was the actual thermal compound that they used had gone hard. And that's very common. I've had that before when I've taken fans off of CPUs in computers, and it does go hard, and sometimes it acts like glue and sticks it down really hard. And if that is the case, then you'll need to be very, very gentle at this next stage. So if you see, those are very different to the other screws. So we can safely put them in the pot with the ones that came out of the case. And there's 4 of those, as you can see. And once you've got them loose enough, they'll just come out easily enough. Now, I was a bit concerned about making sure I got these on the right way round when I took them off the first time, but I wouldn't worry about that because there's only really one way they can go. You try and put them on the other way, doesn't really work. So you want to make sure, if you can see there, they're slightly bent. I don't know if that's standard, or I would think it is though, just to add some tension. So you want this bit that bends in pointing down towards the board, and when you do it up, that's going to push down and add a bit of tension to make sure that the heatsink is tight on to the CPU and GPU. Right, so this now should come up, but as I say, you may find that it's a bit tricky. Shouldn't be. This bit should be fairly straightforward. Now, you can take the antenna off, but I just chose to leave it on. It's totally up to you. Now, to get this off, you just want to get your finger underneath and just ease your way along. And, oh, I've left one screw in, idiot. That's why it wasn't coming. Don't do that, that's not a good idea. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There should be 7 screws, I believe. But you should be able to just lift that up now and just gently ease it out. Now, if you leave this antenna on, you're going to need to just gently ease it through this hole. Now, it looks like it might not go through, but in fact, it does fairly easily. So there you go. Do be careful with this though. If you do leave it on, do, you know, be aware that it can get broken. So we can now set this aside. So if you look at this, there's not much really holding this in, apart from there's some little plastic lugs. And to get this out, you want to start at this end and just gently ease it up. Now, as I say, the heatsink at this point is going to be likely stuck to the board. So what I did initially was I just eased it up, and I got these underneath and just gently went like this until it started to come loose. And then you just lift it to about here, and then you should just be able to ease it back and out. And if you look on the back of here, you can see I've already cleaned these off. Now, when you put it back together, you don't want to put it back together as I have. You want to put it back together with thermal compound on. And the way you put thermal compound on is you just put a little pea size on there and on there, and then when you put it in, you want to be very careful. But I'll do another video hopefully on that, putting it back together. But that's that out now, so you've got the board out. And once you get to this stage, if you're like me, you'll be doing a lot of cleaning because it's very, very dusty. But we can stick the board aside for now. And, oops. Yeah. I don't know if you can see there. That's a little bit of, that's a thermal pad that goes on there. Now, I'm actually going to, these thermal pads, I'm actually going to replace these because I don't know if you can see. Let me see if I can get this really close. Do you see how grubby that is? Yeah, there you go. Really grubby. So I'm going to replace that with new ones. But it can stay there for now. In fact, I'm going to leave it on the metal plate. Right. So now, in order to get this out, again, this should be fairly straightforward. You should be able to just lift this out. And the way you do that, you should just be able to lift it up and again, pull it back. And it's as simple as that. No more to it than that. And that exposes the heat sinks and the fan. So we can set that aside as well. Now, to get the heatsink and fan out, there is 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. And these 2 screws at the front also hold in the back plate here. So let's just get those undone. Get another pot. one. Eek. Two. Now, I don't know if you can see, but this looks actually quite clean. And the reason this is quite clean is because once I got all this lot out, I put the case, this bottom piece, the top plate, or the top piece, this, and this in the dishwasher. It's up to you though. You can do that, or you can blow it through with air. I'll blow it through with air first. But anyway, that's those 4 screws out. Once the 4 screws are out, this just lifts out. There you go. And you can set that aside. And this also just lifts out. And this is the fan housing. And it just lifts straight up and out. And if you look, there's a little hole there, cut out there, and that lines up, and there's one there as well, and they line up with these, so it's fairly simple. When you put it back in, just line those up and drop it back in. Simple as that. And that's that. That can go aside. And the last thing, if you want to take it out and clean off this, is the heatsink. And that isn't held in at all now, so you can just lift it out. And that's that. The PlayStation 3 completely disassembled. Hopefully that will be some use to somebody. As I say, this is the CECHL03 model, and they do vary slightly. So you might find that if you've got a slightly different model, there are some slightly different fittings and fixtures. But yeah, that's that. And my next one will be how to put it back together. So bear with me and we'll put it back together. All right, I'll speak to you in the next one. Bye.